Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harris and I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books, and today we are reading, reviewing, discussing chapter something, I want to say 14 of The Wandering Inn. It was chapter 15 when I started the audiobook this morning, but I do think that the ebook and the website are like one chapter out of sync because it called the call interlude, it called that a chapter. So pretty certain it's chapter 14. I will be sure by the time I upload this, so just like look down here somewhere, it has the name of the chapter. So this one is a really fun one. So this is an entire chapter from Rag's point of view, Rags the Goblin, and as you guys know, really enjoy the weird POV chapters. So I really enjoyed the Torren chapter that we had, and this Rags chapter is super interesting. And it brings to light, it lets me theory a little bit where I wouldn't normally. So one of the things that happens during the chapter is that Rags discovers that she and the other goblins level quicker when they put themselves at risk, when they're in real danger. I wonder if this is also why Erin is leveling so quickly, because she's not from in-world. Everything is inherently more dangerous to her because she didn't grow up with it. So, you know, she didn't grow up with monsters, with fantasy races, with all this sort of stuff. So everything is like her first experience with it. And maybe that being like transitioning to a new world would be a serious challenge. And I'm guessing that the challenge combined with, like I was saying, the fact that it's also quite dangerous, that may end up actually being the rub in terms of why she's leveling quickly. I'm sure it'll be addressed in like book 9, and it will be due to like a shard of the King Force that was bestowed upon her at birth when her coming was foretold, or something insane. But for now, it's believable theory, which I think is fun. What I'm saying there is that I'm told that things that I'm asking questions about get solved in volume 9. Somebody said it in a comment recently. So that's a joke that I'm going to start making, just random predictions for volume 9 that have nothing to do with anything. So yeah, really good chapter, this one. I like the Rags POV chapter reminded me a lot of the rewrite of volume 1, because it felt like it was a lot more consistent. Because one of the problems I've had with volume 2 is we often have like weird perspective changes where it will be like a conversation and one paragraph of the conversation is from Erin's point of view and then the next is from Ryoka's, with no discernible change. So I think that this being from one point of view is more consistent, and kind of forces Pirate Arbor into the higher level of quality that they wrote within volume 1, where they do keep consistent, and they, you know, when they change perspective, they change scene, they do it quite explicitly with, you know, like line breaks, things like that we haven't seen in some of the chapters from volume 2. Not all of, because some of them have been consistent single POV chapters, but the ones where there were Erin and Ryoka on page together, often the perspective would switch back and forth in a way that I think was not well written, I have to say. But the thing is, it's interesting because you can see that Pirate Arbor can do it, because this chapter is really well written. It's really engaging. I think that puzzling things out as Rags is puzzling things out from her kind of naive perspective was really good. I also like that goblins have ancestral memory, and that goblins are like powered by numbers. So we knew that goblin shamans are more powerful the more goblins are in the tribe. But the ancestral memory stuff, being able to remember more and more generations back, the more goblins are in the tribe, is super interesting. And the ancestral memory stuff, combined with things like, long-lived races like half-elves like Cheeria, for example, I think is really interesting. And the connection through this ancestral memory gives a lot of possibilities for storytelling. We got a flashback in this one where Rags discovered a cave that is like a place of death, which is very interesting because this cave, I think, maybe based on the kind of talk around it, maybe this cave is an alternate way into the ruins. I mean, if the ruins are massive and they're across the whole of the plains, for example, maybe this cave is like a back door in, and that would be really interesting. That's also where we find Torren at the end of the chapter. So Torren has been in the cave and he's been doing some crazy leveling stuff. And he fought, it seems like he's been fighting an animated suit of armor. I think that the Torren chapter actually ended with him going into this cave and fighting this suit of armor, or doing something like that. I'm pretty certain also that there was a mention of Torren having like purple eyes or something. So again, something interesting in terms of more development for Torren, more development for Rags, lots of development for Rags in this one. Pirate Arbor goes a little bit into the minutiae, into the weeds of things like how the goblins copy some crossbows. There's a lot of times where I feel that Pirate Arbor does something that if it was not a serialized story, people would get more annoyed with, which is where they really go into the weeds on stuff that isn't really 100% necessary. So this happens in a lot of fantasy, honestly. Like Brandon Sanderson does this sometimes. Robert Jordan does this sometimes as well, where he will be like, I'm going to talk to you at length about how boats work. And you are just reading about boats. And you're like, what's going on with the characters? What's going on with the world? But really, what he's doing is giving you the background on the boats, so you know that he can break how boats work with magic at a later date. So I think Pirate Arbor is doing something similar here in that they're giving you a lot of information and background on how these crossbows are being built, for example, and there's probably something about the way that whole thing was being discussed that might get brought up later. If it's not, if that never really becomes relevant or comes back at a later date, I don't know how relevant or necessary that section of the chapter was. There are some times when you read The Wandering Inn where I think like, I want to word this in a way that is not like trying to be super critical, but you often see this with self-published stuff where, because there is no editorial who is looking at it, reviewing it and going, I think we need to restructure this, restructure that, cut this, cut that, cut this, trim this, which is what you do get with a traditional publishing. The editor, especially someone like a developmental editor, will really push you to cut unnecessary content, and that doesn't happen in indie books. And it's very interesting, you see a lot of indie books, like, let's talk about another book which is published in a similar way to The Wandering Inn, right? The Martian by Andy Weir. So The Martian was serialized, and The Martian has a lot of detail, a lot of engineering talk, a lot of science talk, and like, if you are super into that, then that's probably like your favorite book. But for me, I wanted a bit more like character and tension and plot rather than just science. And I think that The Wandering Inn sometimes gets a little bogged down in the minutiae of stuff that maybe could have been trimmed. And I think that is probably how you get to being a story that is 14 million words or whatever, is because you go like, right, this chapter is 10,000 words, but maybe it could have been 8, you know? I don't want that to sound like I'm being super critical. I am being a lot more critical of The Wandering Inn in Volume 2 than Volume 1, because I do think that the quality of writing is a little weaker. But that is simply because I've been reading Volume 1, which was written with 7 years of experience writing The Wandering Inn, whereas I'm now reading Volume 2, which is, 1 year of experience for, I think, less than a year of experience actually, because it's Pirate Hub used to do 2 chapters a week, right? And then the first volume is like 60 chapters ish, so they probably wrote that in like half a year. So I'm going from someone, like I was saying, who's had 7 years of experience to someone who's had 6 months of experience, and it has been a little jarring. And I think that some of that has contributed to my feelings around this book being a bit weaker. But the thing that I will say is, I read the first few sentences of the next chapter because I listened to the audio book for the start of the chapter and then flipped over to the ebook once I had time to sit down with my pot of coffee, and really enjoy it. I read the first few sentences of the next chapter and I was like, oh, I wish I had time to read that today because that seems super good. So I'm obviously going to enjoy that one. That one looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. We talked a few times in recent videos about things I'm going to be doing where I'm changing up the way that I cover this book. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. I have had the idea of bunching a few chapters together and just releasing less episodes, which I think that people would probably enjoy more. But I don't think I'm going to change anything this year, probably. In January next year, or towards the end of this year, I guess, I'm going to reevaluate the content that I make for the channel and make sure that it's all valuable to you as viewers. And I want to make sure that I'm not just making stuff because I think it'd be fun or whatever, but also that I'm providing value because you guys give me your time and I should be giving you value and entertainment. So yes, I'm going to be looking at maybe shifting up the way that this works, maybe bunching a ton of episodes together and releasing like bumper videos. So it might be the sort of thing where you guys will get like a 1 hour video a month of The Wandering Inn, which is basically just these episodes, but edited all together. So if that's something that you would be interested in, let me know. And yeah, I would also like to start reading this a bit quicker, I think, to read it. So at the moment I'm reading like 4 to 5 chapters a month because that's how many weeks there are in a month. And I think that I would maybe like to increase that so I'm not reading this series for the next 12 years. I would like to get, especially knowing that I'm finding this content a bit weaker, it's still very accessible and easy to read. So it's not like some books where I'm like, I'm not loving, well, I am still liking it actually. But there are some books, for example, that I find really tough to get through and struggle with. And those take me a long time to read. This is still very fun to read. And so what I think I may be losing the thread on a little bit is that I just want to read more of it, but I've structured the series in this specific way. Every single episode for the last month, I have spent 5 minutes talking about the future of this series. And I think you can probably tell as a viewer that it's because I'm not really sure yet what to do. I think the best outcome is to just read a bit more At the moment, I don't have time to do that on this schedule. So when we revamp the schedule for next year, we'll see how that works. Anyway, sorry to have wasted like 5 minutes again talking about the future of this series. I literally have a post-it note attached to the camera that says don't talk about the future of this series, but I don't know why I just keep bringing it up. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you've liked it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and of course let me know what you thought about this chapter in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I will speak to you tomorrow.